have Sheriff Milstead start things off.
Good morning, Mike Milstead, Chair of Minnehaha County. I also chair the National Sheriff's Association Drug Enforcement Committee. So almost daily, I'm interacting with some of the leadership in the Drug Enforcement Administration and the Office of National Drug Control Policy on what's going on with drugs across the U.S. Obviously, I've been before you previously numerous times talking about the dangers posed by opioids, in particular synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Fentanyl continues to flow into the United States at an uninterrupted, unprecedented rate. As I've said before, the chemical is coming out of China, comes into predominantly into Mexico, where it's mixed, blended, either into a powder form or into pills, stamped into counterfeit pills, comes across the border, the southwest border, on a daily basis by the tens of thousands of pills, and enters the U.S. Drug supply. We've learned to combat as best we can to try to help people survive an overdose. Fentanyl's killed over probably 100,000 people in the last year. A high number of our 110,000 overdose deaths last year were a result of fentanyl overdoses. So it's something on everyone's mind. A lot of people, unfortunately, loved ones have lost loved ones to this deadly drug. These are drug poisonings, not necessarily overdoses, because it's a poison that is coming into the U.S. and a poison that is being distributed on our streets and into the hands of people that have addiction issues in particular. So what are the resources available? Our deputy sheriffs for years have carried Narcan or naloxone to try to reverse the effects of a drug overdose, and in particular, it's effective on opioid and synthetic opioid overdoses. And so that availability was difficult to get initially, even for deputy sheriffs. And then it was, how do we find it, get it in the community? And then it was by prescription. And then it was difficult for loved ones to be able to have it in case they needed to rescue their child or another family member or friend that was suffering with substance use disorder. So our community has stepped up. Quite frankly, Angela Kinneke and Emily's Hope have been in the forefront of trying to increase awareness of the struggles, the heartbreak of drug overdose and overdose deaths. And she is not a lone voice, but she leads the charge in our community and trying to get resources into the hands of those who need it. Most often, people who die of drug overdoses and fentanyl overdoses never meant to. It's an accidental death. In my mind, it's a poisoning as well. And so making sure that we hold those accountable that are distributing these deadly drugs in our community is a critical factor. Chief Doom and I talk on a weekly basis about dealing with the effects of drugs in our community, the dangers, the violent crime that results from people who are involved in the distribution of these deadly drugs in our community. It's a challenge every day for us. So with that, I think I'd like to introduce Angela Kinneke with Emily's Hope to talk a little bit more about her project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I am Angela Kinneke from Emily's Hope, and next week marks 6 years since I lost my daughter, Emily, age 21, to fentanyl poisoning. At that time, 72,000 people died in that year of what the CDC calls overdose. Most of those are fueled by fentanyl. That number in one 12-month period in 2023 went up to 112,000 people. I feel like I'm just shouting from the rooftops about this issue, trying to save lives, and this epidemic just keeps getting worse and worse. Fentanyl is now the #1 killer of people ages 18 to 45, and we must do a better job of saving lives and warning our children about this danger. I'm going to tell you about some of the things that Emily's Hope is doing. One thing that we're doing is we're distributing fentanyl testing strips throughout our communities. We have them in bars and tattoo shops. We even have some in a museum, halfway houses, shelters, anywhere that will take them, anywhere where the public goes and uses the restroom. We have little containers that you can see over there on the table. And they were made legal in South Dakota last year. We've given out thousands of these. We continue to refill them when they run out, so we know people are using them. And it is one way to keep people alive. We'd like to stop all illicit drug use altogether because it is very dangerous and can be deadly, but this is one way to keep people alive. Another new initiative that we have, thanks to the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation, we got a grant in order to buy Narcan, and we are distributing Narcan for free in our community until supplies run out, until we can get more funding to buy more Narcan. We have a couple of Narcan boxes over here where the public can just go pick up this Narcan. We are placing this one right here in the Jones 421 building today. They've agreed to allow us to have it there. As you know, the public can go through that building. There are restaurants and coffee shops and other things, and so anybody can just pick up Narcan, and we encourage everyone to carry it. It is not just for people who use illicit drugs to carry. It is for everyone to carry. There have been overdoses and people saved in grocery store bathrooms, in the middle of traffic, all kinds of places. So it is a good idea. It's just a nasal spray. There are instructions. We've got a QR code on the side of the box that take you to our website. Has instructions and videos on how to use Narcan. And we're also working with the city of Sioux Falls to place it in a public building here in the city. We have another box as well. And we're working to get the Narcan also placed by defibrillators throughout town. Also, Emily's Hope has launched a post-overdose response team in connection with the Department of Social Services of South Dakota. And we are going to respond to every overdose in Minnehaha and Lincoln counties for people who live, for people who survive. And we have peer support specialists who are going to get people in touch with resources and get them help. And those are just some of the things we are doing. This is an urgent matter. We have so many people, 307 people dying in this country every single day. If a plane full of people were falling out of the sky every single day, what would we be doing in this country to stop that from happening? We need to do more. And this affects so many young people, including teenagers. 22 teenagers die in this country of overdose every single week, ages 14 to 18. And we have to talk to our children. Emily's Hope has a substance use prevention curriculum, K through 5, throughout South Dakota in 4 states, before 6,000 students right now. We're going to continue to work to educate kids, but we are losing children every single day, every week. We are touched here at home. We may not have as bad of a problem as other parts of the country because we're more rural, because it takes a while for things to get here, but we know those fentanyl seizures have increased dramatically in our community. And we have a family here today who was touched personally by this. They lost their teenage daughter, Kelsey, age 15, to fentanyl poisoning. I'm going to ask Jenny and Jim Orr to join me now. They live in Vermilion, but they want to tell their story and get the word out so that other lives are saved. Thank you for being here, Jenny and Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are 2 days in our lives that were marked with excitement and one day and tragedy. The first day of our lives that we had overwhelming joy was April 22nd, 2008, when we were told that our daughter Kelsey was born, and we were parents to a child. The second day of our life that was marked in our lives is December 25th, 2023, when we found our daughter responsive and in her bed in her home, and a baggie of 4 little pills laying beside her in her bed. Our daughter did not go to sleep that night not knowing that she was not going to wake up that next morning. She was killed by taking a pill that was laced with fentanyl. There was 3 times the amount of fentanyl in her body per the toxicity reports that came back to us that said that told us that this pill was laced and she had been poisoned. We need to know that this is an issue in the state of South Dakota, this is an issue that is affecting our children. And we can't be blind to this anymore. We want to thank Emily's Hope. We want to thank the city of Sioux Falls and the police department for all of the work that they're doing to help make this a issue that people are starting to talk about and putting it in the forefront of their minds. I believe a statistic said that 40% of people know someone that has lost someone to this epidemic, which means if you're in a store, basically out of the line of 10, 4 of those people know that somebody has had a close friend of theirs or an acquaintance that has lost somebody to this deadly epidemic, to this poison that is affecting our kids. If I tell anybody one thing, one pill can kill. It really truly comes down to that. You do not know by looking at something that this is going to be the last thing that you're ever going to ingest.
You know, one pill, all it took. We lost our 15-year-old. We need to step up. Everybody needs to see this. We need to talk about it. Thank you, Emily's Hope, and the city, and police, sheriff, and friends. Thank you.
Chief John Toombs, Sioux Falls Police Department. Just keep my remarks brief. We are seizing record amounts of fentanyl with the Sioux Falls Drug Area Task Force with cooperation with the DEA. And we have record amounts of overdoses. And 2024 is not turning around in a positive way. Again, on pace for record seizures. Our deaths are up dramatically this year already. And the conversation, we look at the tools that are here, the things we've done, the issues we've talked about. This is not a government sole issue. This is not even an organization's sole issue. This is a community's issue. And there's a lot of things that you can maybe be uncomfortable talking to your kids about. This is not one of them. It starts with whoever's listening to this message today. If you haven't talked to your kids yet, if you haven't educated yourself, if you haven't made anybody aware, that now is the time, because as the parents who spoke before me just said, you only get one chance, right? Sometimes that's all it takes, and there's no coming back from that experience, and lives are changed. I'd say, as my experience as an officer, the one thing that'll always stick with me on these calls is the anguish experienced by the family, the cries of the mothers, and the things that take place. So I urge you and implore you, I say this is a community issue. We will not seize our way out of this. We will not arrest our way out of this. There can only be so many boxes in Narcan, right? We all have to work on it collectively to say that we're going to make positive change in our community and defy some of the national trends. And so appreciate you covering this, appreciate the media here today, appreciate the family and friends and loved ones of people who have been lost. And again, we'll carry the message forward and do our part. And as a community, we all need to do our part to interrupt this cycle. Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know if John or Mike or Angela might want to answer, but I'm Morgan at the Argus. I cover education. So I'm kind of curious, like you mentioned, like the K-5 curriculum that you have, like, is there Narcan and these test strips in schools? Like, how are you working with local schools and colleges across the state on this issue?
So we don't have Narcan or fentanyl testing strips in schools, but we have a very rich education curriculum. We would like to get the Narcan on college campuses. In fact, we've been working with some Augie students to do that. We're not there yet, but we're working on that right now. Yes, and the one thing we have to tell you about the boxes and the Narcan is we have to place it in a temperature-controlled area. It can freeze. You can't use it while it's frozen. But when it's thawed, you could use it, but it can't get too hot. So, it would be out in the summer sun. It could go to 110 degrees behind glass like that. So it has to be in a temperature-controlled area. But really, anybody can use it. The instructions are very, very simple, and the videos that come on the website are really simple.
Okay, I just got one quick thing. Really, everything on the log is pretty much reports. We did have a robbery that happened early this morning. It was a convenience store. In front of them, they punched the clerk and then leaving with the beer. So no arrest on that. Everything else is just reports. So, unless you have any other questions for me. Okay, thanks.